Oh my gosh. Kira, you're on the podcast.
Thanks
I
for
am
having me.
so honored to have you. I'm such a huge fan of you, of all your work. I first learned about you on TAP, the Astrology podcast with Chris Redden,
Yeah.
your episode. And I've just been a fan of you ever since. I love your course. Get all your things. I've booked many readings with you. The second one's coming up.
So excited.
Just so honored to have you on the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. No, I'm really, really excited. I also found you on TAP. And I remember freaking out because we're born in the same small town and we're both astrologers who moved to Paris. And I was like, I need to meet this girl.
Oh
like,
my
we have
God.
way too much in common.
I know. And our synastry.
Yes.
And I always get along so well with Aquarians born your decan.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I love that. I mean, I'm biased, but I do love the middle decan of Aquarius. Like, there's such an astrologer energy to it. I always call it the astrologer decan.
Yeah.
And so it's just, it's a great vibe.
And Poway, like
Weird.
Small place.
So small.
No one knows about
No. I screamed like out loud when you said Poway. And my husband's like, what is going on? Are you okay? And I was like, this other astrologer is from Poway, California. Like, what are the odds?
What are the odds? And the fact that we both live in Paris and we hang out now and we're connecting.
It's like fate.
It is fate.
That's fate.
Absolutely. And that's, I think, a lot of astrology. Like, do you believe in fate? Let's go deep. Let's go deep.
Do I believe in fate? Yes, I do. I'm probably on the furthest end of that spectrum of fate and free will. But I find fate to be like a really relieving and liberating thing, whereas I think a lot of people find it scary and confining. And for me, I'm like, isn't it a relief to know that it's not all on you? Because I feel like then every time that something goes bad in your life, you're blaming yourself and you're thinking, oh, I could have done better. And what did I do wrong here? And it's like, sometimes that's just the way it's supposed to go in that moment, which is never fun to hear. But it also can relieve a lot of the shame and the blame that we put on ourselves for things not working out or not being successful at the exact time that we think we're going to be or should be. And I don't know, for me, that's a relief, not something to be scared about,
Yeah, and I completely agree. And people often worry about regret. They worry about the two paths and what will happen if they make the wrong choice or they go down the wrong path. Will they regret it? And that idea of what's for you can't go past you, you can't mess this up. You're on the timeline you're meant to be. It's so relieving.
It's so relieving. And am I allowed to cuss on the podcast?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I always tell clients, I'm like, you cannot fuck up your own fate. Because they'll be like, oh, but did I miss this opportunity? Or I have this transit coming up, this period coming up. What do I need to do to take advantage of it? And I'm like, you don't need to try to do anything because the astrology is always working. It's going to find a way to manifest through you. You don't have to try to take advantage of it. All you have to do is show up for life, meet fate at the door, and do what you can do. Do what you feel you should be doing in that moment. And as long as you're listening to that voice, you're never gonna go astray.
It's one of the things I love about you and all your work and everything you post on Instagram, which, by the way, if you're not following her on Instagram, go follow her. I'll include all the links down below, but you're so philosophical. You have like this magical energy with all the work you do. Is it your ninth house stellium?
I think it's got to be the ninth house stellium.
It's got to be the ninth house stellium.
When I was in high school and people would be like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would say a modern day philosopher, but what a shame that doesn't really exist anymore. And then I found a way for that to exist. And I think little me would be very, very proud.
How did you find astrology?
I mean, it found me, I think as it tends to when it's meant for you. But I had a friend who was very into tarot and astrology, and she kind of, got me into it a little bit. And I was like, oh, I want to go deeper with this. And I just never fell out of the rabbit hole. Like one day I was just starting to look things up, and I was always kind of like, oh, Mercury retrograde and, interested in my birth chart and what CoStar could tell you. But I don't even know if CoStar was around back when I first got into it, when I was like looking these things up as a teenager. But from how that developed, it was like I read my first astrology book. I started this Google Doc that I don't even know ended up being like 300 pages of notes of everything I was reading, every podcast I could find. And then I found Chris Brennan's work and started taking his courses and here we are.
Wow. Oh my God, that's incredible. Do you remember the first book that you
I think it was Astrology for Yourself by Demetra George. So it was like those first kind of steps into, modality and cardinal and fixed and mutable signs and taking it so beyond the stereotypes that we tend to see in pop astrology,
Yes.
which is really kind of the realm that I was operating in beforehand. And
Yeah.
then I was like, oh, this goes really deep. There's a lot more to this. And that got me really excited because it feels like it's relevant and it's resonant too. Like when I was looking at my own chart and ninth house stellium, right? And I had moved abroad. Like I found astrology after I moved abroad. And I was like, well, that's curious because that's probably the most baseline delineation you could give for a ninth house stellium. It's my sun, my moon, and my chart ruler. So
Uh-huh.
it's like all of my big three are there.
Yeah.
And that to me was it was an immediate thing of like, oh, this is saying something real and deep. And it's not just about my inner psychology or you know what I mean? Like kind of that more modern lens, but it can tell you practical, real things about your life. And that
Mhm.
just got me so excited.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing, and it makes me think about the idea of, like, does moving and, like, relocation, can that influence, like, the unfolding of your story with, like, that? Like you said, you moved abroad, and that's how you got really deep into astrology. Because it was the
Mhm.
same for me.
Yeah.
Like, I was into pop astrology for
I
high
mean
school. I mean, my first books were, like, Astro Twins Guide to, like,
oh,
Guys, you
yeah.
know? Like, how to know what the different guys think about you, you know? And, like, secret language of relationships, I was obsessed with that in
Mm.
high school, and, sun signs, you know?
Yeah.
Like, those basic books. But it wasn't until I moved abroad, like, the pandemic really, like, 2020,
Me too.
when I learned about all these astrologers who literally predicted I don't wanna say they predicted the pandemic, but they
Well
predicted enclosure and, like, being trapped and, like, these themes that we saw over the
mhm.
years, and I didn't get really seriously into predictive timing and all that until moved abroad.
Yeah.
So that's fascinating, that's your ninth house. So you moved abroad, got really into astrology, took Chris Brennan's courses,
Mhm.
and then how did you get into your specialty of what you uniquely love of
Ah.
and you're someone that stands out, I think, in the industry because and I'm actually gonna be teaching this in my business course coming up, but it's like niching, like finding that
Mm.
specialty of like what in astrology is like your thing that you're known for. And
Yeah.
I would say that you're known for like the bounds, the decans, the lots, the seven hermetic
Mhm.
lots. How did you get into that?
That's such a good question. I feel like it's such a basic answer, but it's like it just finds you. Like I
Yeah.
think at the start, you kind of do the thing that everyone does where you kind of mimic your teachers a little bit, right? You're
Mhm.
trying to find your own voice and you're just doing what you've been taught,
Mhm.
right? And then you reach a new level of your practice of like, what really interests me? Where do I feel pulled towards? And for me, I feel really pulled towards the things that don't get a lot of airtime. You know what I mean? Like the things that you can't really get satisfying answers from books or that there's not a lot of material out there. Like the bounds, for example, if people don't know what they are subdivisions of the zodiac signs that are ruled by non-luminary planets. So the sun and the moon don't have rulership, depending on the schema you use. There's like 7 different ways that you can do it, but the Egyptian terms and the bounds are kind of the same thing. And so the only real source that we have on those that I could find at the time was in Valens, Vedius Valens, who's a second century astrologer. And he gives you like a couple words for each one. And that's pretty much it. And then I've come across like another source of like Critodamus, and he gives maybe one word per bound. There's like just not a lot out there. And there wasn't a single modern source on these. And I just couldn't believe that I mean, I'm sure things have been lost to the sands of time, but I couldn't believe that no one had taken the time to go bound by bound. Like, I was like, we're missing so much here. And so I just decided it was something really interesting to me and really fascinating to me. And I was like, I'm going to write about this for my patron page, which is like kind of my own Patreon, but it's not on Patreon, it's on my website. And I do a lot of articles, and I was like, "Oh, it would be so fun to do a series going bound by bound, looking at sign by sign, and breaking down the different ways that these start to manifest and have an influence on people's lives because they change the expression of a zodiac sign." And I'm all about nuance. I'm all about specificity. I hate generalized stuff. When people are like, astrology doesn't work because it's so general. I'm like, okay, because what you're consuming is memes. It's not It's not the deeper, more nuanced, technical stuff, which you don't have to do that. But for me in my practice, that's what I like. And so I just wanted to do that. And at the same time that I was doing the bounds, I was also kind of doing the decans. And I got really into that from taking Austin Kopic's lecture series on the decans and using that in consults and realizing, oh my God, there's so much story here. There's so much juice. Like you just get this narrative that you do not get if you're only looking at the signs. And then you layer the bounds and the decans and you're at this whole other level of specificity. And when you bring that in with clients, you talk to people about their charts, that aha moment of them of being like, I never resonated with my sun sign before. I never resonated with this before until you explained the bounds and the decans. And I just feel like it validates people's lived experiences. It explains the parts of themselves that they can't find answers to elsewhere in astrology. And that's what I'm trying to do, So like those things, the lots too, are like a whole other birth chart, right? Like we've done stuff with the lots together on your chart. And it just adds like a totally different perspective and a whole other way, again, to like describe why you might be like that TM without really knowing why. People think like, oh, I'm so Aries, I'm so martial, da 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 da. And then they have their lot of spirit in Taurus. And they're like, but I'm really secretly deeply Venusian. And I'm like, yeah, because your soul, your daimon is of the nature of Venus. And so all of these different things I feel like are just, they're begging to be explored. They want to be talked about. They've been ignored for far too long. And I think we cast them off as minor dignities and we do them a huge disservice. And in that process, we also do disservice to ourselves and our practices, So I just like to go where people haven't gone in a long time, at least.
Yeah. Oh, the depth
Mm.
with the lots, just the lots by
The lots
themselves. I
alone.
mean, I had a reading with you, and there were parts of my chart that never made sense to me, that I didn't fully understand. And also, like, things in my life that frequently happen, I didn't know why.
Yeah.
You were able to go so deep with the details of, like, yes, but the Mars is in this decan, which gives it this flavor.
Yeah.
So I always think, oh, Mars and Aries in the sixth. But Mars and Aries in sixth has this creative flavor too, And it's like these little pieces add so much more. And humans are so complicated
Yeah.
and nuanced, and there is so much depth. And by using these tools that you talk about online, we're able to go there. So, and just help people find clarity and understanding. And I think that's really the biggest thing that we as astrologers do, is just help
Totally.
people understand their lives and themselves,
Yeah, and it's like it's a gift and a blessing to be able to do that, and I wanna do it as good as I can, and I feel like the way to do that is to not stop when it feels good enough. Like, I'm always like, how do I get more specific? How do I get more
Mhm.
accurate? And the lots, the bounds, the decans, those things all help you get a lot more accurate, and I feel like that's also exciting to me. It's not like I wanna be right all the time, but I wanna be right for my clients, certainly, you know? And if this is gonna make me a better astrologer, then I feel like we should all be trying to, aim for that goal and strive to be better and learn more. And, I always think astrologers in general, we're all just eternal students of
Oh,
the
yeah.
stars. And if you stop learning,
Yeah.
you just do a massive disservice to your craft. And so
Yeah.
these are ways that I feel like I'm always learning more things about them. Even the decans, I've been working with them so intimately for years. And just, within the last month, I had this whole revelation about the first decan of Gemini, which is funny given the astrology of this current moment. We just had a Mercury Cazimi in the first decan of Gemini and a new moon there. And I feel like I have this whole new perspective on it. And it's just really cool when you start to feel them talk back to you. And like
Mm.
that's just where the magic happens for me.
I have a question for you, and this is a
Okay.
technical question for all the people listening that have Astro Gold. You use Astro
I
Gold,
do
right?
use Astro Gold.
So I know you go to preferences, wheels, and how do you get these decans on? How do
You have to go to
I'll
wheel
edit this out.
style, add ring,
Add
decan
ring,
rulers.
decan rulers.
And then you have to change the rulership schema because there's different ones. And when you load it in, it's going to give you the modern rulers. And
Okay.
in this family,
Yes.
we use the traditional rulers.
Yes, definitely.
So you're going to go to rulerships and change it to traditional.
Amazing.
And then with the decans too, just something to keep in mind is that there's two different decanic traditions. And Austin Coppock has kind of popularized using both as co-rulers. So Astro Gold is only going to show you one. So you
Okay.
want to make sure you're also thinking about the other one because that's going to give you the second part of the story. And if you were only using this, you'd be missing out on something.
Okay. So this is really good because, it's just such a basic beginner question. It's like, how do you even get started using the
Mhm.
decans? So you go to Wheels and you add these things, and I'll include them in the show notes so you guys know how to do this. Before
Mhm.
we get into the astrocartography component,
Yeah.
how did you build your business? Like, as an astrologer, how did you when did you get the idea of, I wanna start doing this as my work?
Mhm.
And then how as a beginner, those that are listening that are brand new astrologers, how did you build it?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of was fated, right? I was having a loosing of the bond from zodiacal releasing, and it was one of those times where it was the pandemic, and I had just graduated. I'd gone back to college because I had dropped out when I moved abroad, ninth house stellium things again, and decided I was gonna go into social media marketing, but nobody was hiring for an native English speaker in Paris at that time. And so I just kind of had a lot of time to figure things out, which I wouldn't have had otherwise. I was very fortunate to be able to have that time and not have to work during that moment. And I just was studying, studying, studying. I had a friend who was, very like casually interested in astrology and kind of did the funny thing of like sending me her boyfriend's chart and being like, "What do you see?" You know? It was very early on in my practice. I was like, just I gave her like a couple little quick things. And she's like, "This was so accurate. I cannot believe how good you are at this already." And I was like, "Yeah, like I'm just studying, it's just like it's really fun for me." I had no intention of making this my business. I just wanted to learn it on the side and like go back into social media marketing when, I could get back to work and when Paris was kind of open again because the confinement here was obviously really intense for a long period of time. And so she decided, unbeknownst to me, everybody get yourself a Sagittarius friend, right? She's like, "I'm just going to send your services to my group chat." And she was like, "I have this friend. She's an astrologer. She has really cheap readings. Does anybody want one?" And two of them were like, "Yeah, I do." And I charged them $20 each. I wrote maybe like 8 to 10 page report. It took me hours, hours and hours and hours I spent on these, right? And then they both said it was really, really good. It was so funny. I actually did a reading for one of those people like 2 weeks ago.
Oh
Like she came back all these years later and it was so fun to
my
like
wow.
reconnect. And then they recommended me and it was just kind of like a word of mouth thing. And then I started reading for friends and, I'd like post on my Instagram, like, "Does anybody want like a really cheap astrology reading? Like I'm trying to get practice." And then those kind of were like word of mouth, word of mouth, word of mouth. And it just kind of started really blowing up. And then I was like, "Oh, I got to take this seriously." Cause now I have demand already. So that's when I enrolled in Chris's course. And I was like, "I'm going to get really serious about this. I'm going to get certified." Not that you need a certification, but if
Yeah.
you are someone like me who has ninth house stellium and wants that legitimacy, then,
Yes.
we go for it. So
Yes.
I did that. And then in the process of doing that, it just had kind of gotten to a point where I was like, I actually need to incorporate because this is going to become like not legal very soon with the amount of, money that I was making from it. And so literally the day that my L2 loosing of the bond ended, and I wasn't doing this on purpose, it was just how it timed out, right? I launched my website and my business officially. And then, it was just the client grind, like trying to find clients and expand that client list. And I was always of the mind really early on that I didn't want to only do consultations. And I think that if you're trying to build a sustainable astrology business, I know you and I both really feel this way. You cannot do it only on consultations alone. You are limited in your time and your energy. And if you don't have any kind of passive income streams, then you're always going to be bound to showing up live with clients. And if you have ever anything in your life where you need to take time off, right, it becomes a massive challenge. No one's giving you PTO or what have you, right? So you kind of have to set up systems for yourself that are going to make this more sustainable long term. And I don't know, like call it fate or intuition or what have you. I just felt like I kind of want to write a beginner's guide to traditional astrology. And this was my first guidebook. And if anyone knows my work, I'm the guidebook girly. Like I love a guidebook, love to write the guidebooks. And so my very first one was like, I want to make this so someone could read this in a weekend if they wanted to and feel like they could walk away knowing how to read a chart or at least starting to get to that point where they're like, I've got all of the things that I need to know in a way that is accessible, that doesn't feel like this massive textbook. Because I see this all the time where people are like, I'm looking for beginner astrology sources. And someone recommends like a 500-page textbook. And I'm like, this is like, that's not a beginner resource. It's an incredible resource and you should absolutely read it. But it's not the first thing you should read. You're going to go way too deep, way too fast, in my opinion, without kind of just getting that initial excitement building of like, ooh, this works. And I think once you feel like it's working, you're so much more inclined to like go read that 500-page textbook. But you have to be bought in a little bit first, you
Yeah.
know? And so I wanted to give people that step. And so I wrote my first guidebook and I was like, oh, this is so cool. I love writing. I always loved writing since I was a little kid. And now I felt like, oh my God, I get to be a writer, me, you know? And like I got really excited about that. I'm a Gemini rising. Obviously, Mercury, the planet of writing and communication, is near and dear to my life and my purpose and all of these things. And so I did that. And then it just kind of kept growing from there. I was like, oh, I want to teach. And I was really into zodiacal releasing, another thing that I'm maybe known for. And then I was like, for my first lecture ever, let's do the hardest timing technique. And I did a course on that. And then it just kept growing. And I'm a project person. Love a project, love a guidebook, love a lecture, love a course. And it's just been expanding and expanding as my client practice grows. And I feel like that was kind of how I built the business and also doing a lot of social media. Like when I was building my business, I used primarily Twitter because I'm more written word than images. Like Instagram, you're so good at Instagram, and I look at you doing your thing on there, and I'm like, "Ah, can I have what she's having? How do I get that good at Instagram?" And so my thing was really Twitter. And what I did was when Jupiter was in Pisces in my 10th house for a year, I elected a tweet to go live and I scheduled it. And so I'd find the best chart of every day and I would post at that time scheduled. And my following just grew like crazy. And that got me a lot of clients, a lot of customers, and that really, really helped establish my business. And so it was both putting in the work and my own practice and my own craft, starting to teach, but also doing a lot of the heavy lifting on social media that unfortunately I do feel like is part and parcel to growing a business these days because we don't have as much of that kind of local witch vibe anymore, right? Like the village is online. And so you gotta go into town square and like, shout your stories to the world.
I'm like laughing so hard. It's all
So
I see it all.
yeah, that was the business building.
Wow, social media and, like, the
Mm,
Gemini rising, the Mercury. Because I was gonna say, one of the things I tell my students in business is niching is important, but also,
mm.
like, knowing your genius, like, what you're good at. Like,
Yeah,
not only knowing your thing, but knowing your talent. You're
totally.
so good at breaking things down in a
Thanks.
way that's, like, approachable and accessible, and, like, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, advanced, you can learn it, like, really
Mm,
grasp it. It's not convoluted or, like, a lot. It's not overwhelming in the information.
thanks.
Like, I've taken your lectional astrology course, which is
Mhm.
amazing, and
Thank
your
you.
guidebooks, and it's just like you break things down so well. The writer component, would you say that's one of your talents and what you, like, kinda lean into? Like, for example, for me, I lean into video
Yeah.
because when I realized and I've tested with so many different things. I did pictures on Instagram for forever, never grew. I did the long captions and writing, never grew. It
Mhm.
wasn't until I tapped into video when I realized, I've got a lot of energy when I speak. I should go on video and do reels. That's when I found that's when it grew. That's when
Yeah.
my business took off. And so for you, well, one, what's your thing? And two, how do you find that? Yeah, those would be my questions. And three, like, how do people find that thing, would you say?
Yeah, I feel like for me, it probably is writing, teaching. Like I've
Mhm.
got Jupiter in Sagittarius in the 7th house, doing like this nice little sextile with my Mercury in Aquarius. And so bringing wisdom, sharing information, and teaching with people is to me at the heart of what I'm trying to do, even in consultations. Like maybe you can attest. Like I'm kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
teaching along the way,
Yes.
I like to explain and show my work in a way that's hopefully not overwhelming to the client, but also invites you in so you walk away feeling like you learned something. Like I like to kind of ignite that spark of passion and interest in other people. And I feel like for me, writing is also just I love to do it. Like I really genuinely I'm not doing it because it's part of the business. Like social media is a little bit more like I do it because I have to,
Yeah.
but writing, like I would do it even if I wasn't paid for it, like same thing with consults. Like I love that part of the work. And so I think a good question is like, what do you feel drawn to? What do you feel pulled towards? What is that thing that your soul is kind of screaming at you that like that's the thing that you always wanted to do? Like when I was a kid, I used to be the one who would write like 10-page stories when you had to write like one. I always loved writing. I was always wanting to tell stories. And I think that part of us, that spark, it's always there. I think you find it through your lot of spirit, your purpose. And so looking at what planet rules your lot of spirit, what decan it's in, what bound it's in, because that's the tools for how you're going to express it, right? So if your lot of spirit is in a Mercury bound, then you might be more inclined to write about the things that the decan is telling the story of and the house placement and the sign and the planet and all of that. So I feel like it's just one, you can kind of figure it out by looking at your chart and by reading your chart or getting a reading with another astrologer if you want a kind of outside opinion. And yeah, like just going and being really honest with yourself too, because I think we can kind of like I have a lot of Aquarius stuff, right? Like self-doubt is part of the program for me, but getting past that doubt and being like, but what do I really want to do? What really feels good for me? And for me, it's writing and it's teaching. And even if I'm like, who am I? It's like if I wasn't doing it, I would feel like I was denying a part of my self-expression. So I feel like it's just about being honest and removing any type of, you know, guilt, shame you feel around the thing. Like if that's like what your soul wants to do, why deny that? Go after it.
I love that so much. There's just so much here. It's like, oh, where do I want to go with this? There's so many
I know, I'm like, we could talk
options.
for
We
5
could talk
hours.
for 5 hours, literally. Because yeah, I see you on Instagram on your stories, and you have a Patreon, right? A
Mhm.
Patreon or no, Substack.
No, it's like a patron pay it's like my own thing. It's just
Yes.
on my website, but it's
Yes.
basically a Patreon.
And you'll post, your writing, and you'll be
Mhm.
like, I started writing this, but it ended up being 10 pages. And I'm like,
Oh my god, every
how do you
time.
do that? How? Like, I wish I could do that.
Oh my
Such a
god.
talent you
I
have, such
can't
a gift.
stop. Like, I wish I knew how to rein it in,
Yeah, it's
Like, the other day, I
amazing.
sat down for this new writing project that I'm working on. I was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna see how much I can get out." And I wrote, like, 4,000 words in, like, 2.5 hours. I'm like, "How do I can I" like, it's great. Like, this is a good problem to have, but also I'm, like, incapable of reining it in,
Love
Like, I don't
that.
know how to be concise. That's
It
not my skill set, and so I don't try to be, you
it's
know?
so good, though. It's so good. It's like and it's the question of, like, what do you love doing in your free
Mhm.
time? What do you find to be easier, too? Like, it just
Yeah.
flows.
Yeah.
I just think, yeah, it's amazing what you do, and
Thanks.
your course, I love your electional astrology, so course and yeah, your readings, it's like it really does feel with your readings like it's a conversation,
Oh, absolutely.
and
Yeah.
it's and you learn so much with your readings, it's
Oh,
amazing.
yeah. I've
So
never
excited.
wanted to feel like I'm talking at the person. Like I always say to clients, I'm
Mm.
like, I want this to be a conversation. I don't want to talk at you. I want to talk with you. Like, please come into the conversation, ask questions because we're going to get so much more specific. The more that you give me, the more I can give you. And
Mhm.
I'm not here to perform. That's
Mhm.
not what a reading is with me. Like, I'm here to get to the heart of your challenges or your struggles or whatever the
Mm.
question is that you're bringing into the session. And we're going to be able to do that so much better if we're in dialogue rather than me making assumptions about you along the way. Like, I
Yeah.
always am checking in. I'm so open to being wrong.
Mm.
I'm just showing up doing the best I can. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Which means sometimes I am going to be wrong. And I love when clients are brave enough to be like, actually, that doesn't resonate with me. I'm like, great, tell me so I
Yes.
can learn because this is another way that I can view this placement. And you're going to give
Yes.
me, because you're the expert on your own life, not me,
Yeah.
And I think the more that we approach it like that and let people be the experts of their own lives, like I can tell you what a placement means, but you live it every day.
Mhm.
So
You
you tell me
already
what it means.
know.
We're going to learn together,
Yes.
Like my clients are some of my greatest teachers. I really
Yeah.
believe that.
Yeah. I love the idea of, like or I often say, we don't do magic tricks in our we're not doing magic tricks in our
Yes.
consultations, but I sometimes get clients who book readings with me where they're like, "I'm not gonna say anything. I'm gonna stay
I
quiet.
hate
I
that.
just want you to tell me." I had this one client, I kept asking her, "Does this resonate? Like, has this
Mhm.
happened to you in this location?" "I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna wait till it's over, and then I'll tell you everything that happened." And I'm just like, "How do I have these kinds of conversations? Like, how do you handle that? What are your thoughts on that?"
It's so awkward. I hate when people do that. I try to just keep inviting them in, and sometimes, like, what I'll do is, like, I'll ask a question, and then I'll just shut up. Like, I'll give you time. Like, I'll go a minute or two without saying a word and we can sit in silence. Like, I want you to talk.
You're
You
brilliant.
know, like, I'm not trying to make it uncomfortable. Like, I really am trying to say, like, this is about you and your experience. And like, I'm here to be the guide, but also like, you got to show up and participate, you know? And so I try to just set the tone at the beginning by saying it's a conversation and like
Yeah.
inviting them to ask questions. But sometimes it's just like, that's just the client you have. And
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to change it, you know? And so just do my best. And I never feel good about those about those consults when they're done.
I know.
I'm always like, oh, that was really not my best work, you know?
Feel the same way.
But then so often they come back and
Yeah.
it's so funny. I'm like, where?
Yeah.
I didn't even think that was like anywhere near
Yeah.
what I'm capable of giving. But
Yes.
sometimes I think it's also about, you know, the person, their own chart, their lived experiences. And, you know, sometimes they're testing us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to be tested, but I understand why people want to do it. I can respect the skepticism that's present because there is so much bad astrology out there. And so I try to also just come with like, you know, that energy of being like, I understand you. We can meet you where you're at, but like you gotta give a little to get a lot, you know?
Yeah.
Otherwise it's not gonna be as good as it could be for both of us, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm really a believer that a consultation should be beneficial for both parties. You know, it shouldn't feel bad for the client, also shouldn't feel bad for me,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know?
I love that. Oh my gosh. So much amazing stuff. Okay, so question for you for anyone listening who's like new to the decans, the bounds,
Mm.
and the Egyptian terms. What's the difference between
They're just
these?
different words for the same thing. Egyptian
Okay.
terms are bounds.
Okay.
So,
Egyptian terms are bounds.
mhm.
And then the decans.
Yeah.
And so the bounds show you the tools in which you go about doing something. Is that
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Like I like to think of them, you can think of it kind of do an imaginal exercise, which is like what I love to tell people to do with a certain planet in your chart of like that planet is in a certain room in the house that they live in, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
you've got a planet in Aquarius, let's say you're in Saturn's house, but you might be in Venus's room in Saturn's house. What does that look like? How is that modified by being in Saturn's house versus Venus's room in Venus's house, right? What's around you, right? Venus loves creativity and beauty and, you know, generation adornment. So you're going to have all of these different Venusian tools at your disposal. That's what that planet is reaching for. You know, and that's how they're going to almost immediately express themselves. It's their first line that they have to go through before you're even looking at the domicile lord in some ways, because it's the immediate surroundings for that planet. And then the decans are, again, subsections of the zodiac signs, but divided into 3 instead of 5. So they're 10-degree subsections. And for me, that's the story. That's the narrative. That's the plot line that that planet is playing out. And so when you're looking at both of these, you've got the plot and you've got the tools that the planet's using to engage with that story. And then you have the energy that the sign brings in, which is going to still be a massive part of self-expression. Like I'm not saying zodiac signs aren't real or aren't valid or whatever. You know, you can do just that and still get amazing information. But especially when you get into the decans, you can see how, like with Aries, for example, right? That final decan of Aries is a Venus-Jupiter decan, so different than the first decan of Aries, which is a double Mars decan, right? Now you've got this benefic energy, this benefic story happening in this martial, malefic place. And so it's like you're going to be trying to do Venus and Jupiter things. You're still in Mars's house, right? You're still in this Marsy environment. And the bounds of that decan are usually Mars and Saturn as well. So you've got tools of Mars and Saturn. So it's like this interesting overlap, but you get this whole other part of it that's very different from the beginning of the sign and the end of the sign. And one of the things I love to tell people is like we see this in pop astrology all the time where people are like, I hate January Aquariuses and I love February Aquariuses. You know, like this kind of like dividing it into months. And the idea, the thinking is actually right, is like you are right that there are different expressions. It's not divided by months though, it's divided by decans and bounds. And so, you know, let's not discriminate anywhere, but like you can kind of see why people might actually vibe more, you know, with people who are born in January, people who are born in February, something like that, because they are living out a different story,
Yeah.
you know?
It's fascinating because, you know, one of my first books I ever got into in astrology was The Secret Language of Relationships.
Mm.
And they talk about Taurus 1, 2, 3, Gemini 1, 2, 3. And I always noticed, why is it that I always get along with this type of Taurus, but not this one? Or
Yeah.
why is it always this week of Pisces I get along with, but never this one? And I don't say never, but there are more challenges that I've noticed that
Yeah.
are presented in relationships with certain people who born during certain decans of that zodiac sign.
Totally.
And I didn't know that it was the decans for so many
Mhm.
years. I just thought it was the type 1, 2, 3, like in the book, the pop, astrology secret language of relationships book. It's so fascinating, adding that nuance. And that's why I'm really passionate too about nuance with astrocartography. Because you
Yes.
go on TikTok, you go on Instagram, and it's all about go to a Venus line or go to a Jupiter line. It's like, but how is your Venus or Jupiter?
Mhm.
Do you have any new aspects in that location that are affecting your ascendant? What about the latitudes, the parents, the relocation chart? Is it in the third or the fourth house? Because that's going to be very
So
different
different.
whether Venus is in the third or the fourth in the relocation chart. And so it's like we both have that in common of like being obsessed with the detail.
Mhm.
Is that the Gemini
I was gonna say
energy?
it's the
That's
Gemini in us.
Gemini.
It's the Gemini in us. Like, we
Gemini.
want all of the facts, all of the data. We really wanna get into the how, you
Yeah,
know?
Mercury and Scorpio people I find too are like that. They
100%.
wanna know, yes, but why and
Mhm.
how?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
sometimes I love Mercury and Scorpio, but sometimes I'm like, "Okay, that's enough. We can end it here. It's enough."
My husband has Mercury in Scorpio, so I live with this every day.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Where did you meet him?
Paris. Talk about
Paris.
astrocartography.
Yes, because you have, a Venus line, going
Mhm.
through France. It's in your 4th, and
Mhm.
in Paris, you have let's see, you have a Mars Chiron parent in Paris. It's a little bit north, though, but you have a Venus, IC line. Let me actually pull up the relocation chart. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see the visual of this. If you're listening on audio on podcasts, you won't. But yeah, so Venus in your 4th whole sign house,
Mhm.
right on your IC. So he's from here.
He's from here.
Wow, and then you met him here. Was it a study abroad program or?
No, I just really wanted to move abroad.
Yes,
Just
that's
had that
right.
feeling, and
Marketing, yeah.
I was it wasn't even for marketing at the time. I was working at Best Buy back in California, and I just had this feeling that I really wanted to move, and one night I was sitting there and I was like, "Why don't I just, like, try to find how people do this," right? Because you need to get a visa, which
Yeah,
most people don't think
yeah,
about, which is weird,
yeah.
but I was thinking about how do I get a visa? Because I don't wanna go back to school. Like, I had just kind of gotten to a place with my schooling that I was really discouraged about academia, and I found au pairing, and I was like, "Huh, that seems like a pretty easy way to move abroad." And for people who don't know what au pairing is, it's basically this program where you become a live-in nanny for a family, and you don't really get paid, but very, very small
Mm.
amounts. I think I made like $60 a week when I was au pairing, but they
Wow.
provide you with food and, housing and a Navigo pass here. So like you get public transportation and a phone and like all of these things. So they take care of your cost of living essentially. And you live in the house and you work, a couple hours a day or what have you after the kids are done at school. And then I was like, huh, that sounds really interesting. And I was like, what if I just made an account on this website called Au Pair World? What if I just explored that? I don't have to answer any of the families. I can just make the account and see what happens. So I made the account. I woke up the next day and I had 3 messages from 3 different families. Like one was in Italy, and then one was in Paris, and one was somewhere else in France. And out of the 3 locations, I was like Paris seems like the place,
Yeah.
and I'd been to Paris and I loved Paris. And so when I did that, I was like, okay, like I'll just message them back then and see where this goes. And every time I was just telling myself, you don't really have to do this. Like, you don't have to follow through. But I kept following through and I
Uh-huh.
kept going to the next step. And then I ended up moving here, and me and my husband met, I think maybe like 6 or 7 months after I moved here. It was the fastest moving relationship. I always told people I never want to get married. Like, it was never part of my plan. And it was just the right person in the right place. And it wasn't even necessarily the right time because I had maybe a couple months left of my visa. We were both looking at each other like, what are we going to do? Like, we love each other and we want to be together, but am I going to move my whole life here indefinitely for that? And then I'd kind of had to go back to California to renew a visa, or like you have to leave, you know what I mean, when you
Yeah.
only have 1 year. And while I was away, he got an internship in Brussels. And so he messages me and he's like, hey, if you want to come with me, I really want you to come. But I don't expect you to move to Brussels. You don't know anybody there. And I just was thinking to myself, if I don't do it, I'm going to regret this for the rest of my life. Like, I love this man. I really want to try and see. And I had 3 months, because you can leave and come back for 3 months legally. So I went to Brussels. We decided we wanted to keep, going with the relationship. So after my 3 months was up, we went to Thailand,
Ah,
backpacked around Southeast Asia for 4 months. And by the end of that, we were married.
wow. Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating because like the thing a lot of people say about astrocartography is you have to be right on a line. You're
Mm.
not on a line. You're 370 miles away from that Venus line.
Yeah.
But that's within orb, well within orb. And you go on TikTok or Instagram and people will say, you have to be on a line or it's too far. If it's 100 miles away, it's too far. You're well within orb. And the other thing about Paris that's interesting for you is Mercury's trining your midheaven in this location. So like communication, writing, teaching, all of that you
Yeah.
do. And you have a lot in the 6th. So a lot of the work, building your business.
Health stuff.
Health stuff, really.
Got way worse when I moved here.
Whoa, with your sun in the 6th. Wow. And Chiron's on your ascendant.
Oh,
In
didn't
this
clock that
location.
before.
Yeah. So
That tracks.
So Chiron's on your ascendant. Also, I've been doing research for a long time now on health astrology. Chiron on the ascendant and the south node on the ascendant.
Oh, south node on the ascendant is a doozy.
Literally, it's crazy. Those two, but specifically south node on the ascendant is the biggest when I see people's stories of when they move somewhere and something happens. But you have Venus right on the IC in the 4th. I love that for taking care of children, being an au pair.
Yeah.
And having a child.
Yeah.
Like you're a new mother.
Yeah.
And that's so Venus on the IC. I always say Venus on the IC is like one of the best motherhood lines for like taking care of your child, your home, your domestic life, your personal life. When I moved to France, I was nannying for the first 3 years.
Were you? You did the same.
Yes. And Venus IC in the 4th, lived right on the Venus IC. And then I always tell my husband, if we were to ever have kids, it would be right here in France. This would be where it would happen because the Venus IC, I just feel like there is more of that like loving children, family, connecting with the home, your simple joys of your domestic routines, I'm curious, since moving to France, have you gotten more into interior design or like taking care of the home or like design at all?
A bit. Like, I feel like now, at first I really had like more of a very different aesthetic, I would say, like when I was in California versus when I'm here. Your style changes, obviously, when you go to a whole new country. You're trying to assimilate. I don't want the old French women staring me down in the street because I'm wearing my leggings or whatever. So, very different styles. So my style changed a lot. And then, at first it's also just like a product of like, I have no money. So like I'm making do with what you can. But nowadays, like, yeah, I'm very into like, I've got like my little Pinterest boards and like, once we get like our home, I will definitely be all about that. Like it's really exciting to me to like dream it all up for sure.
Venus IC, I call it like the Etsy shop owner line or like the
I love
home,
that.
like, decorating line, like finding a craft and like pursuing it at your house, going to the market, the farmers markets. So wait, you eloped to Thailand.
Yeah, we eloped in Thailand.
Wow. Let's see what you have here. I'm pulling up. You have, another Venus line.
I was going to say, I think it's Venus too. I wasn't sure that I was going to let the professional tell me.
You have Venus rising and Chiron culminating. So, wow. So that could just be a very peaceful, relaxing vacation. But culminating, it can be a place of like healing relationship to self, reputation, public image, how you view yourself, and also in career, like helping teach others. I always think of Chiron not just as like the wounded healer, but like a teacher, a guide, a wise sage. Literally.
Oh my gosh, I go off on like this is like one of my soapboxes for sure. Yeah,
I see so many teachers have strong like Chiron even in the midheaven or on the ascendant. There's just like the guide, the teacher, the knowledgeable person who has information to share.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the biggest misconceptions about Chiron.
Absolutely, yeah, we're obsessed with like Chiron is your trauma and your deepest wounds. And like, yes, it can point to that, but also like reducing Chiron to just trauma is, again, does such a disservice, right? Like trained Achilles had to fight in the Trojan War and was an herbalist and a medicine man and had all of these different skill sets.
Too.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my God, I never knew that.
I learned that Chiron was an astrologer or knew astrology and would teach it.
Oh, that is incredible.
Yeah, I know.
Oh my God. Tucking that one in my back pocket for later.
So what are some of your favorite places in the world that you've been to?
Oh my God, this is such a good question. I love Italy and I
Mhm.
love Greece. Those are
Mhm.
probably two of my absolute favorites. I think the place that I tend to go in Italy with my husband a lot, it puts Venus like even closer to my IC. And every time we're there, I'm like, oh, my dream in life is to someday be able to afford a house on this lake and just come and live like this slow Italian lifestyle. I absolutely love it. I feel so at home in Athens in particular. And then we got married on Koh Lanta in Thailand, and we just both really, really vibed with that location. We were
Wow.
planning on traveling when we were doing our kind of backpacking thing. We didn't have like big plans. We were just like, oh, we'll go here one week and go here the next. And we ended up staying, I think, like 6 weeks in Koh Lanta because we just loved it so much. And we got really comfortable with like the culture and our spots, and the people are so kind and generous and beautiful. And it was just such an amazing experience. And then we left Koh Lanta and then ended up coming back to get married there because we're like, it can't be anywhere else. And
Wow.
so that place in particular, I don't think it shows up though when you type it in, it's too small, but
Yeah.
it's close to like Krabi.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah.
it's interesting because you have like the Saturn in relocates to the 7th house in
Mhm.
Europe, which is so like getting in a serious relationship, a
Yeah.
long-term enduring partnership. I find people who have Saturn transiting the 7th too, they
Mhm.
can get married, meet their long-term partner. Is that what happened to you?
Yeah, that's what happened to me. It was right when Saturn separated from my Venus. Like I think a couple days after we like met for the first time, and then yeah, it just like took off from there, and the rest of that transit was us kind of
Wow.
falling in love. And as mentioned earlier, it was very quick. Very
Yeah.
quick process. People in my life were like, "What are you
Wow.
doing?"
When you know, you
When you
know.
know, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, and I had a lot of relational difficulties before moving here. Like, I did not have the same kind of experience whatsoever, and it was one of those things where when I was looking at astrocartography for the first time, I was like, "Why is it that when I moved to France, like, not immediately, but like a couple months after,
Yeah.
meet my life partner, completely change all of my ideas about like, oh, actually, maybe I do wanna get married, and, oh, maybe actually I do wanna have children," and like all of those things before, I just were not part of my life plan. And it really
Yeah.
feels like every time that you say it, it's so true that just like location matters, and
Mm.
it's going to help you express different parts of your chart in different ways. And
Yeah.
it's so resonant to my experience. And
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
I would say the 2 biggest reasons or what's showing in the chart, what's being reflected is like Saturn in the 7th within orb of the descendant, and then Venus on the IC in the 4th. Those are 2 huge indicators of like home, family, finding your life partner. And
Yeah.
then the timing of like Saturn going through your 7th in the natal chart, and
Yeah.
then relocation-wise, the story of Saturn in the 7th is in the story of France.
That's so
That's
good.
so freaking cool. And that's why I always say like timing matters so much. I think a lot of people think if I just go here, everything will change. It depends
Mhm.
on timing too. Like what are the transits that
Yeah.
are happening in that area of life, or what are the transits that are happening for you, you know? So I like to help people time their trips. So if I see like a love connection, like Venus is on or applying to the descendant in the 7th for
Mhm.
that person, try to get them to a love
Oh,
line
I
or get
love
something in the
that.
7th house in the relocation chart when the
So smart.
timing, you know?
So smart.
Because it's timing and place, you know,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
so important. It's so funny we both have Venus on the IC in the 4th in
I
France, and we
know.
both feel at home here and,
I
like,
know. And
growing
it was
old.
instant,
Yeah.
too. Like, the
Mhm.
first time I came here, I was like, "Oh, I'm, like, meant to be here. Like, this feels right for me." And I did not feel that way
Oh,
at home at all, and then I got here
yeah.
and it's like, "Wow, this is just a completely different experience and flavor." And, people always ask me, "Are you gonna move back?" Which, certainly not right now, but definitely not ever, I don't think. Like, I don't
Yeah.
have that desire. Like,
Yeah.
I miss my friends and my family, but I could
Yeah.
never imagine, like, going back and living an American life again. Like, I really have 0 interest in doing that because this just feels so right for me, you
Yeah.
know?
Are there any, like, lifestyle things? Like, for me, it's cars. Like, I love biking and walking everywhere, and I feel
Yes.
like if I move back to the US, I don't like sitting in traffic and sitting in a car. That's, like, one of my biggest things, and healthcare too, but, like, what are your some of, like, lifestyle things that
Definitely the
you
healthcare,
Uh-huh.
for sure. But also, yeah, being able to be in a walking city is so enjoyable. I also just like that there's a lot more, like, multiculturalism, and there's people from all over the world, and even especially in Paris, right? You have so many different languages, so many different cultures. Like, it feels Poway is not that. Let's just, for people who are unaware, Poway is the exact opposite of that. And so it's very different in a way that I really enjoy. I do love the language, although it's a forever challenge. But, I think it's just the mindset. I love going to like the farmer's market and, I just think that there's something, it's the je ne sais quoi, you know?
It is. It really is.
It's just something about it, that just feels better to me.
Yeah, I know. And it was instant for me too. I have it directly going through Alsace.
Okay.
And that's where, like, when we arrived in Alsace, it was like, I've been here before. I know this place. It was like familiar in my soul.
Yes.
I was crying. I was like, I know this place. And I want to, like, I tell Alex, like, I want to die there. I want to grow old there. I love it. I just love it so much.
I want to die there.
I know.
Like Saturn has entered the chat.
Saturn has come in now. But yeah, it's like I want to grow old there, I love it so much. And that's why astrocartography is so important. Why location matters, because it literally shows you what's happening in that story. And the IC is all about the land and the foundations and your home. And one thing I did want to show you with astrocartography was, like, I don't know, random, but Phoenix. Have you ever been to Phoenix, Arizona?
Yeah, my best friend lives in Phoenix. My best friend from childhood lives in Phoenix.
It was literally like the one place that I was like, what the heck's going on in Phoenix? Because you have moon crossing Jupiter exactly in Phoenix.
Oh, that's so cute.
The moon is on the midheaven. Jupiter's on the setting, so it's on the relationship. So it's like relationship.
She's like my bestie.
Wow.
Like my all-time life best friend lives there. And she didn't, like, we grew up together in Poway, but then she moved there. And so, it's just like a piece of my heart lives there.
Yeah. It's like the place that I was like, that's something really special. And Jupiter setting is literally a relationship. I love that so much. And you have you have also a Jupiter line going through Spain. Like Madrid, you have a Jupiter Mercury. I always say that's like a place of like ideas and writing and
maybe I gotta do like a little little retreat to
Yeah.
Spain and start writing.
And in Athens, you have the Mercury and the lunar nodes.
Okay.
So I always say the lunar node parents, it's like it's a place of something important starting for you or something eventful happens. So like
Interesting.
Mercury node, I've had a lot of clients who literally get the idea to start a book, to start writing a book on that line.
I love that. I'll have to pay attention next time I go to Athens because I'm certainly going to go back.
Yeah, or communication, or maybe get an idea for a course or something.
Ooh.
But yeah, the Mercury nodes and then the Neptune nodes. So very relaxing, dreamy, ethereal.
Yeah, I feel so spiritually connected there as like a Hellenistic astrologer who comes more from like that ancient Greek tradition. It's like such a huge part of my practice and my life and my worldview at this point and spirituality and stuff. So when I go there, I'm like, oh my God, I'm in like the land of the gods, and I feel that so heavy.
I was supposed to go a couple months ago, but there were like massive like riots and protests, and so I canceled my trip the day of.
Oh, bummer.
But it's on the top of my list is to go there because that's literally the land where it all like
and you feel it. You feel so steeped in the history and the culture. It just feels alive, in a way where it doesn't in a lot of other places in the world. And it's magical.
I have a Hellenistic question for you.
Okay.
People in general, they say zodiacal releasing doesn't work.
They're wrong.
I know. I know they're wrong. And I literally get pissed every time I get this question because my first thought is, are you tracking the data?
Yeah.
Like, are you data collecting? Do you have a journal? Are you checking emails? Are you checking the photo albums in your phone? Like, what was happening during that time? And two, my other thought is a lot of people aren't objective. They're subjective.
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. I have too much I could say on this, so I'm gonna like rein it in. But I think that with zodiacal releasing, also people tend to only focus on peak periods. They're like, oh, it's a peak. It means it's gonna be good, and all these things are gonna be happening. And it's like, one, on just like a baseline level, peak is not equivalent to good, right? Like peak just means active. It means you've got cosmic momentum pushing you towards something. Doesn't necessarily mean it's something good, right? Or at least something that's subjectively favorable. And I also think people divorce it from the birth chart way too much. It is not like when you are looking at zodiacal releasing, you're looking at your chart superimposed on a timeline. When you think about it as only a timeline and not your birth chart, it starts not making sense. It's like, okay, what happened during this period? Like when I was in an Aquarius else too from spirit when I moved here. It's like, that's my 9th house. It's activating my entire Aquarius stellium. It's like, what's the journey? Like the journey is like, I'm moving abroad, right? But if you're not thinking about the fact that this is a 9th house thing, right? That I had to like quit my job to do it. It's ruled by Saturn in the 10th. Like it's telling the story of your life unraveling. And when you divorce it from the chart, you get a lot more confused because you're only focusing on kind of like this black and white view of prep, peak, follow through. And while that information is super contextually important, it's not anywhere near the whole story. And I think that's where people get really tripped up. And also, your lots might change. Birth times are wrong a lot. And a lot of people have the lot of fortune, for example, which is going to be the thing that determines your peak periods and follow throughs and preps. At the beginning or end of a sign, I can't tell you how many on-the-spot rectifications I've done during consultations just by looking at the decans. Super easy way to rectify because like what story is your life, right? Like is your fate pattern connected to? It's a very good way. If you don't know what the decans mean, I've got a guidebook.
Yeah.
Shameless plug.
Get the guidebook.
Check it out.
Get it.
But that can be a way that you can also dial in, or your lot of spirit might shift signs and stuff like that. And especially if you've got a rounded birth time, like 7:45 or something like that, it might be off.
Yeah.
Don't take it as fact, right? Like if you've ever been in a labor and delivery room, there's a lot going on. It's not the first thing that they do. Even when I was, giving birth, like I had my husband, obviously, stopwatch to the second. And like the doctor's like, why is he on his phone? I'm like, stopwatch to the second. Not even the second, the millisecond. I have millisecond. Like I was on this, right? And so afterwards they record the time and it was off by like 2 minutes. And my husband's like, oh no, this is the time. I'm like, no, this is the time we clocked. This is the time we're writing down. And I was like, well, good thing we were paying attention because I have the right one. And like, luckily, like with my daughter's chart, it doesn't really change much anyway. But that's with someone paying so close of attention. And there are so many different things that can happen or be challenging in that moment that if you're you're taking it just as blatant fact, like people round up, they look at the clock 2 minutes late because there is a newborn child in the world and someone who has just gone through like a portal to death and rebirth in the room. Like the time is not of the utmost concern. You know what I mean? So like take it with a grain of salt. Like whenever I see like a 0-degree ascendant, 0-degree lot of fortune, stuff like that, I always rectify.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't.
And do you do chart rectification?
I don't offer it as a service. It's something that I just like do with clients in the session because I'm like, I don't trust this. Like I want to be sure, And so that can be another reason why people feel like their zodiacal releasing doesn't work, And it's like, well, your lot of fortune is actually in the sign before, it changes. Yeah.
It's so good. And there's also so many other things like foreshadowing periods and culmination periods and focal points.
Yes.
People don't even like Chris Bredden obviously does, and you do, but like a lot of people, they just look at peaks.
Yeah.
They don't think about all these other things.
Yeah. It's like you're missing out on just so much of the story.
Yeah.
And then you're wondering, like, why doesn't it work? Because you're thinking peak should just be the best time of my life. And it's like, you have to add in all of the things. Is the ruler, like, even if it's a peak activating the benefic of sect, okay. Is it in the 12th house ruled by a malefic? Not going to be a fun time. It's going to be a 12th house time.
Yeah.
Right? There might be some benefits and some blessings that come through with that, like Venus or Jupiter.
Yeah.
Still the 12th house.
Yeah.
Still ruled by a malefic planet. That's gonna color the experience.
Yeah, Valens, I remember the 3 points that he makes is like the third one is the ruler of the sign.
Yes. So important.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah. And do you use transits with zodiacal releasing too?
Kind of. Yeah. It's like
cross-reference?
Yeah, I'm always cross-referencing and like trying to stack the testimony because you want to see it said multiple ways before you're gonna actually tell someone this is gonna happen in their lives, right?
Yeah.
Like the rule of 3 thing, right?
Yes.
You should be able to see it said 3 different ways before you can kind of be pretty sure it's happening. And if it's a big life thing, like if it's a move abroad, if it's getting married, meeting like a friend that you're going to have for the rest of your life, it will show up in multiple places.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to make it fit.
Yes.
If you're trying to make it fit, that's subjective bias like creeping in. It's like there should be things that are telling you the same thing from different techniques.
Yeah. And I love something you posted today. I think it was shared. It was like, it's already happening to you. You already know your chart.
Yes.
You already know that what happened 12 years ago, that, the Jupiter transit, it's a similar theme.
Yeah.
Or, so it's the idea of like, you know your life and you can look at it and say, is this hard or is this easy? Or is like, what's going on, you know?
Yeah, shout out to Meg Keen. That was
Yeah.
their post. They're an amazing astrologer. I love them. I've done a collaboration with them on like the 5th and 11th houses. They're just absolutely amazing. But yeah, that post that they did was so great. It was like talking about how people get scared of certain placements in their chart. And it's like, are you scared of yourself? You know what I mean? Like you've been living this for your whole life, right? So it's like your lived experience is that planet, is that whatever, you know? So when you start getting fear-based around it, right? Just come back and remember that like you're the expert on your own life and that you don't need to be scared of something that you've already experienced for, if you're reading it, probably like upwards of 20 years. You know what I mean? So yeah, I wanted to like eat that post for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It was
I
so
saw
good.
it and I was like, yes. I'll question. This is kind of a random question for you.
Okay.
And I'm sure a lot of people want to know because I see this question always recommended on search and people want to know. Taylor Swift.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
People have fights about this on Reddit, everywhere, about her birth time. And is she a Scorpio rising or is she a Capricorn rising? And then there's the other theory that she's a completely different rising sign. But personally, a fellow Scorpio rising,
100%.
you can tell. Like, I'm a Scorpio rising. I know a fellow Scorpio rising. Like, I can see them. Like, I know.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
So it came to me in a dream. And I'm like, I'm so serious, actually. People are going to think I am off my rocker. But no, I really did have a dream. And I swear to God, it was revealed to me she is a Scorpio rising. And I just believe that she's a Scorpio rising based on her chart and her life and the way that she expresses, right? That Mars is on the ascendant.
Oh, yeah.
Are you joking? Like, she is so laser focused. Like, the way that she has been like getting back at Scooter Braun for stealing her masters for years, right? Like the song, like she's still writing about Kanye and Kim. Like she's still bothered, right? Like the inability to like let go of the grudge, right? Is like so Mars and Scorpio in the first, right? And it's like so much of this is channeled through her passions and like even just the staying power this woman has. Like that Eras tour, doing a 3.5-hour concert with singing and dancing and performing, like all of this every night for years. Like that is Mars in Scorpio on the ascendant expressing itself to like the nth degree. Do you know what I mean?
21 months of constant media coverage. That Eras tour.
And also, can we not forget the fact that she decided at one point, I just don't want to be seen for a year. And nobody saw her. That's Scorpio.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She's like, you're just not going to see me.
And the fact that we don't know her birth time, like, she knows people are obsessed and want it.
She reads it all.
Yeah.
You know, she's tuned in to like the discourse.
Yeah, she doesn't want people to know.
No, she doesn't want to give them like the certainty, right?
Yeah.
She reveals everything through her music too. Like she doesn't come online and make comments about her life. She does it through her craft. And I think it's a very kind of scorpionic way of like, you're going to get only what I give you, you know? And that there's other than that, like a massive kind of privacy around her life. It's Scorpio rising in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. I know. And I'm like thinking about her chart because she has a Jupiter moon conjunction in Cancer.
Yeah.
And Jupiter's going to hit that. And I'm like, are you going to get married or get pregnant? I don't know.
I think
Some
so.
ideas.
Totally.
I think
I mean, she wants kids too. Like that's like one of the few things she said is like she wants a family.
Yeah.
And, you know, I would not be now. She's been in this relationship for a long time. She's done with the Eras tour.
Yep.
Just got back her masters.
She just got back her masters.
Good for her. During all of that in her 8th house too.
I know.
Like, come on. Jupiter, you know, the new moon Kazemi, all of these things happening in her 8th. And then she announces, like, I actually was able to buy back my masters because of how successful the Era tour, like, was, you know?
And she wrote in the letter yesterday, such fresh content. Literally yesterday.
The pop culture aficionados are on it.
I know. She said, like, this is all I've ever wanted. This is the whole goal.
The control, the ownership.
The ownership was literally, this was what she wanted more than anything.
Yeah.
I think more than the fame of the Eras tour, what she wanted was to own her work.
Totally.
And now that she's done that, when I read this, my gut was like, oh, she's done it. She now feels like she's done it. Like she's made it. And I don't want to say she's not going to retire or anything like that. I don't think she ever will. But I think like she can relax a little bit. Or I feel like she might want to relax a little bit more now because she accomplished it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the big goal has been completed at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now it's like she can kind of put her focus on other things should she want to do that. And I would not be surprised with Jupiter transiting her moon and
I
everything if
know.
it's like,
Yeah. Personal
time.
life. Yeah. And also to anyone who says that she's a Capricorn rising, Capricorn just sits different. Capricorn has, it's not vengeful. Capricorn is
I was
vengeful.
like, she's way too petty.
I know,
she be so for real.
She doesn't let it go. She talks about things in newspaper or like magazine articles 7 years later. Like, right? Like everyone's moved on except her. Like it's a Scorpio trait. And Capricorns, they don't really care that much. I feel like Capricorns, they do move on.
Yeah. It's a cardinal sign.
Yeah. And they're more focused on acquiring things, I don't know.
It's just a different, it's a totally different energy.
Yeah.
I'm not buying the Capricorn rising propaganda. Propaganda I'm not falling for. Taylor Swift is a Capricorn
Saturn
rising.
and Aries propaganda I'm not falling for.
Literally.
I think you tweeted that.
I did. Yeah. It was like, it's so fun. It's so funny. The explosion of that kind of concept is like the most Saturn and Aries thing that you could possibly think of. It's like, yes, this rejection of cultural norms and ideas and what we've been sold and fighting back against that and just like declaring it, right? Doing like the Aries thing of like being forceful about like, I'm not falling for this.
Oh my
it's so
God.
Saturn
These
and
3
Aries.
years are going to be crazy, wild.
It's going to be strap in.
Strap in. Yeah. Oh my God, this has been so much fun.
I loved this.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for having me on.
I know. So where can people find you? How can people learn about your work? Get the electional astrology course, get the guidebooks, book a reading. I'm like a mega fan. I do all the things of yours. I'm such a huge fan. Where can people find you? What do you have?
Yeah, you can find me on my website, kiraryberg.com. You can find me on social media, Kira Astrology, usually on Instagram. Someone who has never posted anything stole the name, so there's 2 Y's. So sad. I've been trying to get that handle for forever, but 2 Y's on the Kira Astrology on Instagram. And yeah, I've got guidebooks, I've got lectures, I've got courses, I've got my patron page, and very soon, or by the time this is out probably, I will have a podcast of my own called Threads of Fate. So you wanted to ask at the very beginning, am I a fate girl? And I was like, how hilarious.
That's crazy. Threads of Fate. Oh my God. I'm so excited.
So tune in, check it out.
I love it. Oh, thank you for being here.
Thanks
I'll put all the
me.
links in the show notes. Follow her. And what an honor to have you on the show. It's been so much fun. I feel like we could do like a 5-parter.
No, 100%. Like, so they're going to kick us out of the podcast studio. Like, your time is up.